At 11:47 on the night before her 10th wedding anniversary, Vanessa Hale kissed another man in a hotel suite while the husband she had once promised to grow old with was setting a table for two. Michael Bennett had spent most of the evening in their apartment overlooking the East River. He had cooked the pasta himself. Nothing elaborate. Vanessa had never liked elaborate food when they were young. Back then, she preferred tomatoes blistered in olive oil, too much garlic, and the cheap red wine they used to buy from the corner store beneath Michael's first apartment. So he made exactly that. He found the old white plates they had received as a wedding gift. He lit 2 candles. And beside Vanessa's plate, he placed a small velvet box. Inside was not a diamond, not another expensive object. It was the key to a small house in Bellport, a weathered cottage near the water where they had spent their first anniversary. Michael had bought it quietly 3 months earlier. Vanessa had once stood barefoot on that porch, wrapped in his sweatshirt, and said, "If we ever get tired of the city, promise me we'll come back here." Michael had remembered. He always remembered. At 9:14, Vanessa texted him, "Bored dinner running late. Don't wait up." Michael looked at the message. Then at the table, he typed, "Tomorrow's important." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "I know." He smiled faintly. He thought she meant their anniversary. At 10:06, he poured the wine back into the bottle. At 10:31, he blew out 1 candle. At 11:02, he sat alone at the table while the second candle burned low. His phone vibrated. Not Vanessa. Her father, Charles Hale. Michael answered immediately. "Everything okay?" Charles sounded tired. "Did she tell you?" Michael looked toward Vanessa's empty chair. "Tell me what?" A pause. "Nothing. Forget I called." "Charles." I said forget it. Michael knew the older man well enough to hear fear beneath irritation. "You took your medication?" "Yes." "Your blood pressure?" "Michael." "Check it." The line went quiet. Michael heard movement. Then Charles muttered a number. "Too high." "Sit down." "I am sitting." "Drink some water." "You're worse than my cardiologist." "Your cardiologist doesn't know you lie about sodium." Charles almost laughed. Then his voice softened. "You're a good man, Michael." Something in the sentence bothered him. "Why are you saying that?" Charles hesitated. "I should have said it years ago." The line went dead 20 seconds later. Michael remained at the table. He looked at the little velvet box, then toward the dark windows. Vanessa arrived home at 1:18 in the morning. Michael was still awake. The candles were gone. The plates had been cleared. The velvet box sat inside his jacket pocket. Vanessa entered quietly. Her heels were in one hand. Her hair was slightly disordered. She smelled like perfume, rain, and a cologne Michael recognized. Not his. She stopped when she saw him sitting in the dark living room. "You scared me." Michael did not move. "Good dinner." Her eyes flickered. "Long with the board." "Yes." Michael stared at her. Vanessa placed her purse on the console. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" He could have asked. He could have shouted. He could have said the name already forming in his mind. Julian Cross, senior partner at Cross Capital. 42. Divorced. A man Vanessa had mentioned too many times with too little interest. Julian understood markets. Julian had connections. Julian knew how to take risks. Julian had just bought a place in Tribeca. Julian had invited Vanessa to Zurich. Julian thought Michael's consulting work was surprisingly small scale. Michael had met him twice. Both times Julian shook his hand too warmly. Now Michael looked at his wife and noticed a faint red mark near her collarbone. That was all he needed. "Go to sleep," he said. Vanessa stared. "What?" "I said go to sleep." Something defensive rose in her face. "You're being strange." Michael stood. He walked past her. She turned. "Michael." He stopped. For 10 years, he had loved the sound of his name in her voice. Tonight it sounded borrowed. Vanessa folded her arms. "You could at least ask how my evening was." Michael looked at her. "I don't think I want to know." The color left her face. Neither of them spoke. Then Michael walked into the guest room and closed the door. Vanessa did not follow. At 7:10 the next morning, she woke to the sound of pounding. For one disoriented second, she thought it was part of a dream. Then it came again. 3 hard knocks at the apartment door. Michael's side of the bed was untouched. Vanessa sat up. Her head throbbed. On the bedside table sat the anniversary card she had bought weeks ago and never written. She stared at it. 10 years. She had betrayed her husband less than 12 hours before their 10th anniversary. The realization should have arrived with horror. Instead, it arrived wrapped in exhaustion. For months, She had been telling herself the marriage was already broken. Michael had become distant. Michael had stopped striving. Michael had refused every opportunity that could have pushed him into a bigger life. He had once been the most ambitious man she knew. At 31, he had been rising rapidly inside a medical technology company called Viridian Systems. He had patents, investors, offers. People called him brilliant. Then, almost overnight, he stepped away. He opened a small consulting firm, turned down relocation, turned down partnerships, stopped talking about building anything enormous. For years, Vanessa waited for the old Michael to return. He never did. Eventually, disappointment hardened into contempt. Julian had entered through the crack. At least that was the story she had told herself. The pounding came again. Vanessa pulled on a robe and opened the door. Her father stood there. Charles Hale had not waited for the elevator. His breathing was heavy from the stairs. His silver hair was uncombed. His tie hung loose around his neck. "Dad," he pushed past her. "Where is Michael?" Vanessa stared. "I don't know." Charles turned. "What do you mean you don't know? He's probably at the office. It's 7 in the morning. He does that sometimes." Her father studied her face. Then his gaze dropped. To the dress from the previous night, still lying across a chair. To the pair of unfamiliar cuff links on the console table. Vanessa followed his eyes. Her stomach tightened. Julian's cuff links. One must have caught in her coat. Charles looked back at his daughter. "Who? Dad, who was he?" Vanessa's throat went dry. "You came here to ask about Michael." Charles's jaw hardened. "Answer me." She looked away. His voice dropped. "Vanessa." She closed her eyes. "Julian." For several seconds, her father did not react. Then he sat down. Not dramatically. His knees simply seemed to stop holding him. Vanessa stepped forward. "Dad." He raised one hand. "Don't." His face had changed. She had expected anger. What she saw was grief. "Please don't look at me like that." Charles laughed once. A hollow sound. "How should I look at you? You don't know what our marriage has been like." "No," he nodded slowly. "Apparently I don't." Vanessa folded her arms tighter. "Michael checked out years ago." Her father looked at her. He stopped caring about his career. He stopped wanting more. "I kept waiting for him to become the man he used to be." Charles's eyes narrowed. "The man he used to be?" "Yes." "The man at Viridian?" "Yes." "The man with stock options and a promotion and a research team waiting for him in California?" Vanessa blinked. "How do you know about California?" Her father stared. Then something passed across his face. Realization, followed by horror. "He never told you." "Told me what?" Charles stood. "God." "What?" "He promised me." Vanessa's pulse accelerated. "Promised you what?" Her father walked toward the window. For several seconds, he said nothing. Below them, Manhattan moved through an ordinary morning. Taxis, trucks, people carrying coffee. Nothing outside understood that Vanessa's marriage had broken open overnight. "Dad." Charles turned. 7 years ago, Hale Medical was going bankrupt. Vanessa frowned. "No, it wasn't." "Yes." The company had a bad quarter. It had falsified inventory, hidden debt, and a credit facility we couldn't cover. Vanessa stared. "That's not possible." "I signed the papers." "Why would you?" "Because I was desperate." His voice cracked. Vanessa had almost never heard her father admit weakness. Hale Medical had expanded too fast. "Your uncle was sick." Our CFO had concealed losses. "A private lender called Marston Ridge held enough of our debt to take the warehouses, the patents, your mother's house, everything." Vanessa's lips parted. Charles continued. "I had personally guaranteed part of it." Her stomach turned. "What does that have to do with Michael?" Her father looked at her as though the question physically hurt him. "Everything." Silence filled the apartment. "Marston Ridge didn't want our company," Charles said. "They wanted Viridian." Vanessa frowned. "What?" "They were trying to force a medical logistics acquisition. Michael had developed the routing engine Viridian needed for a federal contract. He owned part of the intellectual property." She remembered. Michael's software. The project he used to work on until 2 in the morning. The project everyone said would make his career. Charles's voice became quieter. Marston needed his signature. Vanessa stopped breathing. "So Michael made them a deal." "What deal?" "He signed away his personal licensing rights." Her father swallowed. "He surrendered his equity package at Viridian. He gave up a promotion. He walked away from the California division." Vanessa stared at him. "No. In exchange, Marston restructured our debt, removed the personal guarantees, and gave Hale Medical 3 years to recover. No, he saved the company. Vanessa shook her head. No, he saved your mother's house. Stop. He saved the pensions of almost 400 employees. Dad, and he saved me from losing everything I had spent 30 years building. Vanessa stepped backward. Her calves struck the sofa. She sat. The room suddenly felt too bright. No, Charles looked at her. He told you he wanted a smaller life because I begged him not to tell you. Vanessa's hands had gone cold. Why? Because I was ashamed. The answer was barely audible. I was your father. I was supposed to be the successful one. The provider. The man who had built something from nothing. He looked down. And your husband saved me. Vanessa pressed both hands over her mouth. Memories began arriving. Michael coming home one rainy evening 7 years ago. He had stood inside the kitchen wearing a wrinkled shirt. She had asked how the meeting with Viridian went. He kissed her forehead. I'm leaving. She had laughed because she thought he meant the office. Then he explained he had resigned. She had screamed at him. What about California? Not happening. What about your equity? Gone. Why? I want something simpler. She had called him insane. He had absorbed every word. Charles continued. He spent 2 years consulting for Hale Medical suppliers at rates far below what he could have earned elsewhere. Vanessa looked up. What? He helped me rebuild the supply chain. No, he negotiated contracts, built the inventory system, introduced us to hospital groups. Vanessa remembered complaining that Michael spent too much time helping her father with little things. Little things. Her father's eyes filled. You know the system Hale Medical sold last year for $80 million. Vanessa could not answer. Michael designed the original framework. She stared. He refused ownership. Why? Because he said it had been built while helping family. Vanessa's voice broke. Family? Yes. Charles stepped closer. You used to tell everyone your father recovered the company. She lowered her eyes. I let you. Why? Because Michael asked me to. The apartment became completely still. Her father's next words were soft. He said you were proud of me. Vanessa's face crumpled. And he didn't want to take that away. For years, she had looked at Michael and seen a man who had stopped climbing. She had compared him to executives, to entrepreneurs, to men whose names appeared in magazines. She had told him Adrian Lee bought a house in Westchester. Julian Cross flew private. Sophie's husband made partner. She had once said over dinner, do you ever wonder what your life would look like if you hadn't gotten comfortable? Michael had looked at his plate. Yes. She thought the answer meant regret. Now she understood. Charles sat opposite her. Last month, I finally told him I was going to tell you everything. Vanessa wiped her face. What did he say? He asked me not to. Why? He said it was too late for the truth to mean what it should have meant. Her breathing stopped. What does that mean? Charles looked toward the hallway. Did he know about Julian? Vanessa said nothing. Her father understood. Oh God. He stood. Where is Michael? I told you I don't know. Call him. Vanessa reached for her phone. 3 missed calls. All from Michael. The first at 5:12. The second at 5:16. The third at 5:19. There was one voicemail. She pressed play. Michael's voice filled the room. Calm. Too calm. Vanessa. I'm at the office. I left the anniversary gift in the kitchen drawer. You should keep it. I've called Daniel Ross. He'll send the divorce papers this afternoon. Her father closed his eyes. The message continued. I won't make this public. I won't call Julian's firm. I won't involve your family. I just need one thing from you. A pause. Don't rewrite what happened into something that makes betrayal easier to live with. Vanessa stopped breathing. Michael finished softly. You didn't betray me because I failed you. You betrayed me because at some point you stopped respecting the man you thought I was. The voicemail ended. No goodbye. No happy anniversary. Nothing. Vanessa sat frozen. Then she remembered the kitchen drawer. She ran. The velvet box lay inside beside a folded envelope. Her hands trembled as she opened it. A key. No note. Charles stared. What is it? Vanessa looked at the small brass key. I don't know. Inside the envelope was a property document. Bellport. She recognized the address before she finished reading. The cottage. Their first anniversary. Michael had bought it. Her knees weakened. On the bottom of the page, in his handwriting, were 7 words. For when we finally slowed down together. Vanessa pressed the paper against her chest and began to cry. Not elegantly. Not silently. Her body folded over the kitchen counter. Charles did not comfort her. Some grief had to be allowed to belong to its cause. The divorce papers arrived that afternoon. Michael asked for almost nothing. His clothes, his books, his share of one investment account. He transferred the apartment to Vanessa. He kept the Bellport cottage. She did not contest it. She sent him 17 messages in 3 days. He answered one. I need distance. She wrote, I know the truth now. No response. I know what you did for Dad. Nothing. I know what you gave up. Nothing. Please let me explain. At 2:03 the following morning, his answer arrived. There's nothing to explain. Vanessa stared at the screen until sunrise. Julian called repeatedly. She blocked him, then unblocked him, then blocked him again. Finally, she met him once. At a restaurant where they had once sat too close during lunches neither called dates. Julian looked irritated. You vanished. Vanessa stared across the table. You knew Michael worked at Viridian. Everyone knew. Did you know why he left? Julian paused. That pause told her everything. How? Julian leaned back. Financial circles talk. You knew he gave up his equity to save Hale Medical? I heard something. And you still let me talk about him like he was a failure? His expression hardened. You were unhappy before I touched you. That isn't what I asked. Vanessa, you knew? Julian exhaled. Yes. She stared. How much would his equity have been worth? Julian looked away. Today? Yes. I don't know. Guess. Maybe 60 million. The sound in the restaurant vanished. Julian added, possibly more. Vanessa stood. Sit down. No, he chose to walk away from it. For my family. That was his decision. She looked at him. There it was. The difference. Michael had made sacrifice sound ordinary. Julian made betrayal sound inevitable. Vanessa picked up her coat. You know what's strange? Julian said nothing. I thought you were the ambitious one. His eyes narrowed. She walked out. Michael disappeared from the social circles where Vanessa used to see him. For several months, no one knew what he was doing. His consulting office closed. His website went offline. He sold most of his clients to another firm. Then he left New York. Vanessa heard from her father that he had moved to Boston. She did not ask for the address. She wanted to. Every day. But for the first time in years, she understood that wanting something did not create a right to have it. Michael rented 2 rooms inside an old brick building near Cambridge. One was an office. The other barely qualified as one. 3 desks. 1 refrigerator. Bad coffee. For employees. A project they called North Star. Years earlier, Michael's Viridian research had focused on medical logistics. But while rebuilding Hale Medical's supply chain, he noticed something no major company had solved well. Small hospitals consistently ran out of critical equipment, not because supply did not exist, but because predictive systems were too slow. A ventilator tube might sit and used in Connecticut while a hospital in rural Maine canceled procedures. Blood products expired in one county while another issued emergency requests. Michael had spent 7 years quietly developing a new model. He never launched it. There had always been something more urgent. Hale Medical, Vanessa, a mortgage, family, marriage. Now there was nothing left to protect but the work itself. He called the company North Star Health Systems. The first hospital rejected him. The second asked for 6 months of free testing. The third canceled after an administrator changed jobs. His fourth investor laughed when Michael described the scale he imagined. You're 42. Michael nodded. That's usually how age works. The investor smiled. I mean you're late. For what? To build a unicorn. Michael closed his laptop. Then don't invest. He walked out. His first employee, Elena Park, was waiting downstairs with 2 coffees. How bad? He thinks I'm old. Elena handed him a cup. You are old. Michael looked at her. She smiled. Fortunately, hospital software doesn't care. They kept working. Michael did not build North Star to punish Vanessa. At first, he was not sure why he built it at all. Some nights he slept on the office sofa. Some mornings he woke angry without knowing at whom. He never checked Vanessa's social media. Never searched Julian's name. Never asked friends whether she regretted anything. Pain became work. Work became structure. Structure became a life. 18 months later, North Star prevented a regional shortage of pediatric dialysis supplies across 14 hospitals. A medical network signed a 3-year contract. Then another. Then a federal emergency response program. Within 3 years, North Star employed 400 people. Michael appeared on the cover of a healthcare technology magazine. Vanessa saw the issue in an airport bookstore. Michael Bennett, the quiet architect rebuilding America's medical supply chain. She stood beneath fluorescent light, holding the magazine with both hands. He looked different, thinner, gray at the temples, calmer. The article estimated North Star's valuation at $1.6 billion. Vanessa laughed, a tiny, disbelieving sound. The man she once accused of having no ambition had become a billionaire founder. But that was not the part that made her buy the magazine. Halfway through the interview, the reporter asked, "Why did you spend so many years in small consulting work when your early career suggested you were headed for something much bigger?" Michael answered, "Sometimes life asks you to choose which success matters most at that moment." The reporter pressed him, "Do you regret those years?" Michael said, "No. Not all sacrifices become mistakes just because the people involved don't understand them." Vanessa stopped reading. She closed the magazine, walked into an airport bathroom, locked herself inside a stall, and cried into her hands. For years after their divorce, Hale Medical struggled again. Not because of Charles. He had retired. A new management team expanded recklessly into Latin America. Debt rose. Margins collapsed. Then a cyber attack shut down distribution for 8 days. The board needed a buyer. 3 firms expressed interest. The strongest offer came from North Star Health Systems. Vanessa learned at her father's kitchen table. Charles placed the acquisition report between them. She saw Michael's company name. Her hand froze. "He knows that it's our company?" "Yes, of course." "And he still made an offer?" Charles nodded. "His is the only offer that preserves the workforce." Vanessa looked at him. "Why would he do that?" Charles gave her a tired smile. "You still ask the wrong question." "What does that mean?" "You keep assuming everything he does is about us." She lowered her eyes. The acquisition gala was held 6 weeks later. Vanessa had not seen Michael in 4 years. She almost declined the invitation. Her father insisted, "You're still a Hale shareholder. That doesn't mean I need to be there." "No," he studied her. "But maybe you need to see who he became." Vanessa wore a simple black dress. No diamonds. No statement necklace. Nothing that required anyone to notice. The ballroom at the Meridian Hotel was crowded with executives, employees, investors, and journalists. Vanessa stood beside her father near the back. Then the doors opened. Michael entered. He wore a dark suit. Nothing flashy. No entourage. No performance. Yet the room changed around him. Executives moved toward him. People waited to shake his hand. A senator stopped mid-conversation to greet him. Hospital directors nodded with visible respect. Vanessa watched. Years earlier, she would have noticed the suit, the watch, the valuation. Tonight she noticed something else. Michael remembered names. A receptionist from Hale Medical approached him nervously. He recognized her before she introduced herself. "How's your husband's recovery?" The woman's face lit. "You remember?" "Of course." He spoke with warehouse supervisors, engineers, drivers, not just board members. Vanessa felt her father watching her. She whispered, "He was always like this." Charles nodded. "Yes. I just stopped seeing it." Michael eventually noticed them. His eyes met Charles's first. Warmth. Then Vanessa's. A pause. No anger. No longing. No visible satisfaction. Just calm recognition. He walked toward them. Charles held out his hand. Michael ignored it. He hugged him. Vanessa looked away. Charles's voice shook. "You still make an old man feel guilty." Michael smiled. "You do that yourself." Then he turned toward Vanessa. "Hello. For years. One word. Hi. You look well." "So do you." An awkward silence. Vanessa almost laughed at the absurdity. 10 years of marriage reduced to polite sentences beneath chandeliers. Michael looked toward her father. "I need to speak with the legal team before the announcement." Charles nodded. Michael turned to leave. Vanessa said, "Michael." He stopped. "I'm glad you saved the company." Michael glanced toward the Hale employees filling the room. "I'm buying a logistics platform and keeping 600 people employed." She understood. Not saving us. Saving them. "Still," she said, "thank you." Michael nodded, then walked away. The acquisition announcement began at 8. The chairman spoke first, then Charles. Finally, Michael took the stage. Behind him appeared the North Star logo beside Hale Medical's. "Companies like to talk about legacy," he began. His voice was calm. "But legacy is not a building. It isn't a founder's name on a wall." Charles looked down. "It's what happens to people after leadership makes a decision." The ballroom became quiet. For that reason, North Star will retain every distribution employee at Hale Medical. A murmur swept through the room. Vanessa stared. Her father had not known. Michael continued. We will also honor the existing pension agreements and reopen the employee scholarship program that was suspended last year. Applause erupted. Charles removed his glasses, wiped his eyes. Vanessa understood the scale of what Michael was doing. He had been humiliated by her, used by her family's crisis, betrayed, silenced. And when he finally possessed the power to dismantle the institution tied to all of that pain, he chose to protect the people inside it. The announcement ended. Vanessa found him later on the hotel terrace. Somehow, she had always found him near windows or balconies when the rooms inside became too loud. Michael stood alone with a glass of water. "No champagne?" she asked. He turned. "I still don't like it." She remembered. 10 years married. She had forgotten. "Can I have 5 minutes?" Michael glanced toward the ballroom, then nodded. Vanessa walked to the railing. The city glittered below. "I've rehearsed this conversation for 4 years. That sounds exhausting." She smiled despite herself. It was. Silence. "I'm sorry." Michael looked at her. "I know. No, I don't want you to say that yet." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "I need to say it properly." He waited. Vanessa clasped her hands together. "I'm sorry I cheated." Michael's expression did not change. "I'm sorry I lied." Her voice tightened. "I'm sorry I compared you to men who had no idea what you had already given up." She looked down. "I'm sorry I made your quietness into evidence against you." Michael breathed slowly. "I'm sorry I believed ambition only counted when other people could see it." Her eyes filled. "And I'm sorry that the night before our 10th anniversary, while you were buying a house from our first anniversary, I was with another man." Michael looked toward the city. Vanessa continued. "Dad told me everything the next morning." "I know. You knew he would?" "No. He came because he thought you had finally told me." Michael nodded faintly. "I should have." Vanessa stared at him. "What?" "I should have told you years earlier." She shook her head. "No, don't do that." "Do what?" "Take part of the blame, so I feel better." "I'm not." He looked at her. "I made a mistake too." "What mistake?" "I thought sacrifice spoke for itself." Vanessa said nothing. Michael continued. "I kept expecting you to understand choices I refused to explain. That doesn't excuse me." "No, I still betrayed you." "Yes." She flinched. Michael's voice remained gentle. "But marriages don't become healthy because one person silently collects sacrifices and waits for the other person to discover them." Vanessa looked at him. That was what made his forgiveness harder to survive. He did not need to turn himself into a saint. He could see his own mistakes without using them to erase hers. She wiped beneath one eye. "Do you regret saving Dad?" "No, giving up Viridian." Michael thought. "I regret some of what came after. But not the choice." "No, even after what I did." Michael looked toward the ballroom, where Charles laughed with former employees. "Your father's employees didn't betray me." Vanessa smiled sadly. "You always separate people from their worst decisions." "Not always." "You did with me." "No," she looked at him. Michael's expression softened. "I separated your worst decision from your entire humanity." The word stopped her. "That doesn't mean I wanted to stay married to you." Vanessa nodded. "I know." "Do you?" "Yes." For the first time, she actually did. Forgiveness was not a door back into someone's life. Sometimes it was simply permission for both people to stop standing in the ruins. Vanessa took a breath. "Are you happy?" "Yes." "With someone?" Michael smiled. A real smile. Small. Private. "Yes." The answer hurt. But the pain no longer felt like injustice. "What's her name?" "Elena." Vanessa remembered the name from articles. Northstar's first systems engineer. "She built the company with you." "She helped." "And she knew you before the valuation?" Michael laughed. "She knew me when the office bathroom didn't have hot water." Vanessa smiled. "Then she definitely earned the upgrade." Michael glanced at her. For a moment, something familiar existed between them. Not marriage. Not romance. Just the ghost of two people who had once known how to make each other laugh. Vanessa's expression grew serious. "Does she know about Hale Medical?" "Yes." "What you gave up?" "Yes." "Did that change how she saw you?" Michael shook his head. "No." Vanessa looked down. "She respected you before she knew." He did not answer. He did not need to. That was the sentence Vanessa had spent 4 years learning. She had demanded evidence before giving respect. Elena had apparently given respect before receiving a legend. The terrace doors opened. A woman stepped outside. Mid-40s. Dark hair pulled loosely back. Navy dress. No dramatic jewelry. She held Michael's coat. "There you are." Michael's face changed. Not enormously. Just enough. Vanessa recognized love instantly when it was no longer directed toward her. Michael introduced them. Elena, this is Vanessa. Elena's eyes flickered with recognition. Then warmth. It's nice to meet you. Vanessa almost laughed. No accusation. No triumph. No claim. Likewise. Elena handed Michael the coat. We're leaving in 10. Okay. She touched his arm lightly, then returned inside. Vanessa watched the doors close. She seems kind. She is. The answer was immediate. Vanessa smiled through tears. That matters more than I thought it did. Michael studied her. You're different. I had expensive lessons. So did I. They stood silently. Finally, Vanessa asked, Did you ever open the anniversary card? Michael looked confused. The one in our bedroom. No, I never wrote in it. He nodded. That sounds about right. She laughed. This time he did too. Then the laughter faded. I hope you're happy, Michael. I am. I mean it. I know. And I'm sorry it took losing you to understand who I was married to. Michael looked at her for a long moment, then said quietly, Maybe you needed to understand yourself first. Vanessa nodded. Probably. He extended his hand. For a second, she stared at it, then took it. Not husband and wife. Not enemies. Two people acknowledging a history they could neither restore nor erase. Goodbye, Vanessa. Goodbye, Michael. He walked back into the ballroom. Vanessa remained outside. She did not follow. 3 years later, Charles Hale died peacefully in his sleep. Michael came to the funeral. Of course he did. He stood near the back of the church beside Elena. Afterward, he approached Vanessa. No reporters. No executives. No billionaire founder. Just the former son-in-law Charles had once loved like a son. Vanessa handed him a sealed envelope. Dad left this for you. Michael took it. He opened it later that night. The letter was short. Michael, I spent half my life thinking a man's worth was what he built. You taught me that sometimes it is what he is willing to carry without being seen. I am sorry I asked you to hide what you did for me. Silence protected my pride and damaged your marriage. That part belongs to me. Thank you for saving my company. More importantly, thank you for never making my daughter pay for my debt. Live well, Charles. Michael folded the letter. He sat alone in his office for several minutes. Then Elena entered. Everything okay? He handed her the letter. She read it. When she finished, she placed it back on the desk. He loved you. I know. You loved him too. Michael nodded. Elena sat beside him. Outside, North Star's headquarters glowed across the river. The company was worth more than $9 billion now. Its systems operated in 32 countries. Michael's name appeared on business rankings he never read. People sometimes called his life a comeback. He disliked the word. He had not come back to anything. He had moved forward. That evening, Vanessa drove home from the funeral alone. Her life had changed too. She never married Julian. He lost his partnership after an insider trading investigation unrelated to her. For years, Vanessa might have viewed that as justice. Eventually, she understood that his collapse had nothing to do with her healing. She built a quieter career helping family-owned businesses restructure before crises became disasters. Whenever founders spoke proudly about how much they had sacrificed, she asked one question. Did your family know? Most looked confused. Vanessa never explained why she asked. She had learned that hidden sacrifice could become a strange kind of resentment even when it began in love. She had learned that admiration built only on status could vanish the moment status changed. Most of all, she had learned that contempt usually entered relationships long before betrayal did. Years earlier, Vanessa thought the worst thing she did happened in a hotel suite. It did not. The betrayal began sooner. It began when Michael's sacrifices became invisible because they were inconvenient to her narrative. It began when she stopped asking why he had changed and started assuming she already knew. It began when comparison became easier than curiosity. Julian had simply been the final act. One autumn afternoon, Vanessa drove to Bellport. She had not been there in 16 years. The cottage stood at the end of a quiet road near the water. Different paint. New roof. Same porch. She parked across the street. For a while, she simply looked. A bicycle rested against the railing. A woman's scarf hung from one chair. Through the window, Vanessa saw Michael carrying a tray. Elena followed him onto the porch. They sat. No champagne. No investors. No chandeliers. Just coffee and autumn sunlight. Michael said something. Elena laughed. He looked toward the water. Peaceful. Vanessa did not get out of the car. She did not knock. She did not believe nostalgia entitled her to interrupt someone else's happiness. Instead, she smiled, then drove away. Years earlier, Michael had bought that house because Vanessa once asked him to promise they would return when life slowed down. He had returned, just not with her. And strangely, that no longer felt cruel. It felt complete. That night, Michael stood on the Bellport porch while Elena slept inside. The water moved quietly beyond the reeds. He thought briefly of Charles, of Viridian, of Vanessa, of the anniversary dinner that went cold, of the key inside the velvet box. For years, he had imagined that love meant enduring disappointment without complaint. He no longer believed that. Love needed truth, respect, boundaries, and sometimes courage meant leaving someone you still cared for when staying required you to disappear. Michael did not build North Star to make Vanessa regret the night she betrayed him. He did not become wealthy to prove that she had misjudged him. He did not rescue Hale Medical a second time so her family would owe him again. He built because building was still inside him. He forgave because anger had become too expensive to carry. And he moved on because forgiveness had never required returning to the place where trust died. Vanessa had believed Michael failed because she could not see the price of his sacrifice. The morning after she betrayed him, her father finally showed her the truth. But by then, truth could not undo what contempt had already destroyed. It could only illuminate it. And sometimes illumination was its own kind of justice. No revenge. No public humiliation. No cruel speech beneath a chandelier. Just a woman finally understanding what she had thrown away. And a man no longer needing her understanding to know what he was worth. Michael had sacrificed his career once to protect her family. Years later, he protected something else. Himself. That was the choice that finally made him free.